You're welcome to Tree Talk episode 152. Today, myself and Matt are going to be looking back on the final round of the Senior Football Championship. We'll have a brief look at the Intermediate Football Championship, Premier Junior and Junior A Football Championships, with nearly all the teams into the quarterfinals or knockout stages. We'll discuss Peter Casey's unfortunate injury and Mikey Kiely's move to Ulster Rugby. That's all coming after this.
The impression of the game you get out with what you put into it's like a walk of life. If you're good enough, go out and get it, no more about it.
But not so much control in the centre of the field from Kilkenny as Richie Bennett sends it high and over the bar.
Your mother sends you down to the shop for a pound's worth of goods and she gives you 50 pence. You can't get the pound's worth of goods, can you?
Just about kept in. Oh, well done, Shawnee Buckley. To do that to Tomas O'Shea, he deserves to score from here. One of the highlights of the Sunday game.
Limerick went out there from the word go today. No more about it. They made all the running, that was it. Put the ball over the bar and the back of it, and that's it. No ifs, no buts.
Is there much time left? We have a couple of injuries. Here comes Kieran Curry. Curry leading the charge of the Red Brigade. 45 metres out. He's a chance to score. He's put it high. He's put it over.
There's no sympathy in this game for anybody.
I'd say, Matt, it appears every week we start with Ballystein, but I suppose just the nature of the draw in Group 1, we were both in Clahan on Saturday evening. I was obviously in goals. You had a better vantage point from the sideline. Gaeltacht Gales deserved 115 to 110 winners over Ballystein to top the table. You were there, obviously, Matt. I suppose, what was your main takings from the game?
Yeah, Jack, first of all, I would say that it was a very enjoyable game. I thought it was a decent game of football. I predicted a draw, and at one stage there late in the game, it looked as if it was heading in that direction. Like both sides had periods of dominance with a very pretty even first half. But what surprised me was Ballystein got the perfect start with that early goal and were 4 points up early on, and it looked as if they were at that stage as if they were unstoppable and heading for a second win. But you have to credit the resilience of Gaeltacht Gales, that the way they came back into it, I think by half time they had moved a point ahead, and you're in the trenches, and we have said this before, you need your big players to stand up. And I think on the day that you must hand it to the two countrymen, the Childs brothers, who really dug it out. Maurice O'Sullivan also at fullback, Patrick McGrath at centre back, like right down the centre. They had a very, very strong spine to the team, and the rest of the team responded. Now they had the type of a third quarter that a coach would dream of, where they went 7 points clear. They really had Ballystein on the back foot. But immediately before the water break, Ballystein got a couple of quick fire points. And, the immediate thought from experience and what happened about these water breaks is, oh gosh, the water break has come at the wrong time for Ballystein, that it has broken their bit of momentum to get back into the game. It actually hadn't, Jack, as you will recall. Immediately after the water break, Ballystein landed 4 points in a row to draw level. To come within a point. And at that stage, it looked as if all the momentum was with Ballystein. Well, we got in the home stretch, we got an exact replica of what we saw early on, where Ballystein had the momentum and did not drive on, and we saw the resilience of Gaeltacht Gales when they clawed their way back. They did the very, very same at the end, because when they were under threat towards the finish in the last 6 or 7 minutes, closed out the game very, very efficiently. And of course, Bob Childs did the rest. Like, it was an incredible performance by Bob Childs. 12 points out of 115. Like it's and like 4 of them were from play, but it wasn't just his contribution on the scoring front. If you recall, Jack, a couple of times when there was only a point in it, when the ball was being brought to the fence, Bob Childs brought it out a couple of times. Like he called. I thought his brother Tommy was absolutely excellent at midfield and provided a platform. Now, like they played like a team that were liberated. Since they came up, they have played the group games, relegation games prior to this, and like they got their first win in the group stages against St. Kieran's. And because of the configuration of the group and because of the results, it meant that they were absolutely guaranteed a quarter-final place. And it meant that the game against Ballysteen in many ways was a free pass. And it gave John McGrath and his management team an opportunity to send them out and just to show what they could do. And I think they showed a decent level of football. Now, Hull is far from lost for Ballysteen. Now, I know probably the biggest prize of all on the day was not just the 2 points, if we're being honest. I suppose the real big prize was to avoid Adair in the quarterfinals, if possible. But I think Ballysteen are quite capable of regrouping. I think Ballysteen in recent years we have seen, Jack, that they are a different animal when it comes to the knockout stages. We just go back to 2019 and putting Newcastle West to the pin of their collar, and we saw last year against Father Cases in the quarterfinals before slipping up to Ballylanders. All is certainly not lost for Ballysteen, but yeah, it's a big task, I suppose, to face a day. And but overall, I thought it was a decent game of football.
Yeah, I suppose it was a decent game of football watching on from the field. I just thought, to be fair to Gales, they just seemed that bit hungrier, that bit sharper. And I was talking to John McGrath after the game, and just, I won't say they're a different team to last year's team, but they've certainly learned their lessons from their first year in the senior ranks. I think they're a stronger team, more organised, probably better handling. They just improved all around the field and completely deserving of their place at the top of the table. And as you said, to avoid Adair, they'll play Ula in the quarterfinals. Now, Ula got through by virtue of Adair's win over Napirsig after Ula beat Napirsig. Adair won 13 to 6 points over Napirsig. I suppose probably wasn't really a surprising victory for Adair, but they seem to be motoring well, the county champions.
Yeah, they are, without hitting the high spots, which is a good sign of a team. I suppose it's ominous for all those that are pretenders to their crown, is that they haven't hit peak yet, and we know that there are, a couple of more notches in this Adair team. So, like, nothing has changed as far as Adair is, as far as the perception of Adair is concerned. In terms of the championship, they're championship favourites, they're champions for a reason, and like I think they just motored through the group stage. I won't say on freewheel, but they motored very, very, very comfortably through it, Jack, and certainly they have no plans to relinquish their crown easily or anytime soon, I'd say.
No, they definitely don't. And as we said already, Adair will play Ballysteen quarterfinal, Gales will play Ula, and then at the opposite side, then you've Napirsig versus St. Kieran's. And we won't go too much into these games, Matt, because obviously in 3 weeks' time we'll be discussing them in depth. But for Napirsig, like, this must be 3 or 4 years in a row now where they're flirting with relegation. Like, it's a worrying sign for the City Club.
It's a worrying time for senior football status, but they seem to be able to rescue it comfortably enough. When they have been confronted with this situation before, and as you say, we'll be talking about it in greater depth in 3 weeks' time. But I have a hunch that Napirsig will be okay.
Yeah, they always seem to be able to look after themselves in the relegation. But it's no team goes out to be in the relegation places. I suppose that's Group 1 and Group 2, which are kind of grouped until the quarterfinal stages. Group 3 and Group 4, Monaleen and Clahan played on Saturday evening as well to see who would top the table. You correctly predicted a 3-point win for Monaleen. They went out 113 to 110. But it's a good sign from Clahan, if anything, to stay within 3 points of a Monaleen side that we have really talked up this year. And both sides will go into the quarterfinals with huge confidence.
They will, and it was a Clahan team that were short a number of players, a couple of key players, in fact. And I said last week that I put Clahan in the same boat as I put Galtee Gales. The only difference was that Clahan got the win under their belt at the first attempt. And as things transpired, the very same as the Gales, it was a free pass for them into the quarter. Last Saturday was a free pass for them. They were into the quarterfinals. They were safe from relegation. They were able to go out there and express themselves. I saw them against Ballylanders on their first game back, and I could sense the tension on the line and practically in the team as well. The tension to get that first win, and they did it. I was impressed with the manner in which they did it, because there was a stage there in the second half when they had succumbed a 4-point lead and had allowed Ballylanders draw level, and it looked at that point that it was Ballylanders' game all day, but they conjured up a magnificent goal. And I've seen Monaleen this year, and I've been hugely impressed by Monaleen this year, but I have been equally impressed by Clahan. And whilst I did think that Clahan, the game probably came a bit too soon for Clahan to beat Monaleen, and they were short a few key players. I felt that they were going to run the very, very, very closely. They had ran them very, very closely in the league, in so far as how much you can read into the league is distinct from the championship. But Clahan will be nobody's pushover. As I said last week, it's only 1986 when Clahan were winning a county senior double. So there's a huge depth of tradition there. And one thing about the Clahan team, it wasn't as if Clahan came from nowhere to win the intermediate championship. They had been flirting with it for 3 or 4 years and had become well-hardened, both physically and mentally. And I think they were very good. I don't want to preempt what our discussion will be in 3 weeks' time, Jack, but I wasn't surprised, and that's why I went for a narrow win for Monaleen, because I felt Clahan would really put it up to him, and that's how it transpired. I've been impressed. I've seen Clahan. I've been impressed with them.
Yeah, and obviously Clahan, they're through to the quarterfinal stages, but they're going to play one of the big boys in Newcastle West. Newcastle beat Father Casey's 3-10 to 11 points. And I suppose I was hardly surprised a bit with the result. There's no doubting how good Newcastle are, but we were probably talking about Father Casey's, that if they could bring through some of the minor talent from the last few years, they're consistently in minor finals. But I think it was a statement of intent from Newcastle West on Saturday evening to win by 8 points, and they were ahead. They were ahead by probably that margin for a lot of the game.
Yeah, Jack, and I certainly didn't. I predicted Newcastle West would win. I didn't predict the margin of victory, but we certainly predicted last week that this was the opportunity for Newcastle West to make a statement. I had seen him in the league final against Monaleen. I was very, very disappointed with him. I saw him in the opening round against Galway. I was equally disappointed with him. But I felt out there was a team ready to explode on the scene. And I think they gave a statement of intent. And I'm not at all surprised at it, because, and of course, there is a dynamic that between Newcastle West and Father Casey's. And it stretches all the way from minor through under 20 right up to senior. But the farther up it goes, the more that Newcastle West seem to have the upper hand. I think we said last week that this was the opportunity for Newcastle Western, that they would take it to launch a serious bid for championship honours. And I think they have made a statement of intent in that victory over Father Casey's. And certainly, it'll be a very, very interesting game with Clown in 3 weeks' time.
Yeah, and I'll just put up the quarterfinal fixtures here, and we won't talk too much about them, or that's the Premier Junior ones. The Celtic Gales, Ula, Dare, Ballysteen, Monleen, Father Casey's, Newcastle West, Clahan, and obviously there's favourites in all of them games, but there's no one saying that any one team is guaranteed to go through. But there's some mouth-watering clashes there. But one game that really stands out for me, and I suppose it'll be close enough to your heart, is Galway versus Ballylanders in a relegation semi-final. Obviously, Galway gave Adair a lot of it in last year's semi-final, and Ballylanders got to the final. So it just shows how tight this Limerick Senior Football Championship is.
Jack, I was hoping you wouldn't bring it up.
I have to.
Yeah, look, it's disappointing for both clubs, and I've been speaking to representatives of both clubs in recently, and since this pairing emerged, and they're both very, very concerned about their status naturally, and there is an acceptance, I think, on both of their parts, that they just didn't measure up on this year. And they will be trying to rectify it now. At least one of them is going to preserve status in the semi-final, and naturally they'll be hoping that going through to the final, whichever one of them will go through will fall into the relegation final, will survive through that method. But it's a very, very disappointing place. Both of them were semi-finalists last year. You're correct. Both of them gave a good account of themselves in the semi-final. Galway put it up to there. Ballylanders beat Ballyleen. Ballylanders had a very, very disappointing county final, Jack. Yeah. And I just wonder, is there a residue of that hanging over? It's very, very hard to pick up from that type of a result on football's big day, and certainly in the lead up to last year's county final, there was an expectation, and rightly so, if a team gets to that, they're going to give a good account of themselves. But unfortunately, from a Ballylanders point of view, last year it was almost a no-show. Adair played against the staff, and who will ever forget that the goal was at Hugh Burke got it after about 7 or 8 minutes, a goal for the Ages. And from then on, it was all downhill for Ballylanders, and unfortunately, they were in damage limitation. And I just wonder, was that a carryover of that? I certainly had a fear that there would be a carryover of it. Now they have a very young team. 4 of their defenders would be under 21, under 2021, that they're starting with. Ballylanders are going through a certain element of transition at the moment as well, Jack. Possibly, and you can say every team is going through an element of transition, but it depends on the amount of the transition that you're going through. Now they've suffered a big blow going into the relegation playoffs, and it looks as if Jimmy Barry Murphy's season is over, and he's their go-to man. So a lot of soul searching to be done between now and 3 weeks' time, when that relegation final will take place. It'll be a local derby for the Ages, and tickets would be, they will be precious for that one. But really, the tension will be very, very high. But both sides would probably approach it, Jack, with that they have the backstop of a relegation final if all fruit fails, but of another chance. But that won't count on the day. It will be just get rid of that relegation threat, and it'll be very. I have waffled on about it now, Jack. We'll move on to the next subject.
Yeah, no, look, it's a great game to look forward to. And you actually mentioned tickets there, Matt, and I suppose we got a bit of good news during the week with regards tickets and I suppose attendances and stuff. It's fairly ambiguous so far in relation to club championships, but look, we seem to be coming out of this, and hopefully we can start to get good attendances at these games.
Yeah, hopefully, and that'll be hugely important. All the hurling games, senior hurling games presently are fixed for the Gaelic grounds. There are a number of people out there not too happy about it, but the point is that that is to accommodate the greatest possible attendance, because of the size of the venue, and I suppose you've got to respect that. So yeah, look, there is a certain element of ambiguity about it. It's not as crystal clear as we would have liked, the directive, but I'm sure that it will emerge in the coming days. And I would have thought that the GA at national level would have jumped to the idea of 75% for the All Ireland final between Tyrone and Mayo, but that just isn't happening, because the president of the GA this morning said that there's a logistical issue with it, because of course the caveat with the increased attendances is that it's for fully vaccinated people. So that means putting in place a structure that you check who's vaccinated and who's not. And you know something, Jack, from going into restaurants or where this is necessary at the moment, it's cumbersome enough finding this thing in the phone and producing it, and very often, more often than not, nearly the scanner that's supposed to be scanning it can't scan it. So I could just imagine Croke Park with 60,000, maybe 20,000 of them queuing up with less than an hour to go to the match. I could see pandemonium. I suppose that there's a point in it. But I understand that provision is going to be dropped from the 20th of October, but that, of course, will be too late for the All-Ireland Senior Football Final, and indeed too late for a lot of the club championship games. But I think clarity is needed, and clarity is needed quickly, because just the bland statement that you can go up to so much, provided that they are all vaccinated, leaves an awful lot of. It leaves a certain amount of ambiguity, but it leaves a huge logistical challenge to the organisers of events.
Yeah, but look, we're headed in the right direction anyway. I suppose that's our senior football championship coverage. I suppose moving quickly on to the intermediate championship, which is still ongoing. There's still a couple of games we played. Mungret St. Paul's have to play Rathkeale, and Kildare-Pallaskenry have to play Crocora. Now, with all those teams involved in hurling, I don't know when they're going to be played. They could be played this week, I'm not sure. But in Group 3 and 4, Ger Griffin's top Group 3, Pallasgreen in second. In Group 4, St. Senans have topped it with Bruff in second. That means Ger Griffins will play Bruff and Senans will play Pallasgreen. And like Griffins and Senans have been the standout teams so far in the competition. You would have fancied them to get through to the semi-finals at this stage. And then on the other side, Mungret St. Paul's are through. They'll play either Rathkeale or Pats will join them. Pats are on -9. Rathkeale are on a level score difference. If Mungret beat Rathkeale by more than 9, Pats will go through them. Anything less or anything other, Rathkeale will go through them. And then Crocora need a huge win over Kildare-Pallaskenry to have any chances. But just looking at what we've seen so far in intermediate championship, we had singled out probably Ger Griffins as a team to beat at the start, with probably Mungret and St. Senans. Has anything changed in your mind from what we've seen so far?
No, Jack, nothing has changed. Gerald Griffins, of course, extrapolate altogether that they have been, the number of county players they have and what have you, but they've been so close for so long now that, that you could say, probably if you're looking for omens, you could say third time lucky. But I think that the picture will be clear this Thursday evening, because I understand the two outstanding games are due to be played this Thursday evening, are they? Crocora and Kildare-Pallaskenry and Mungret St. Paul's and Rathkeale. I
only got hurling fixtures, but Mungret St. Paul's are down to play hurling on Friday, so unless they have completely separate squads, which I know there's very little turnover in the squads, but I suppose it has to be played sooner rather than later, really.
Yeah, that would suggest that is unlikely. But my understanding is that they were to be played this Thursday. But we'll just wait and see. But the scenario that you have painted there, Jack, is absolutely correct. And the nub of your question, can we see beyond Mungret St. Paul's, St. Sinnans and Gerald Griffins? I think nothing has changed in the championship so far to suggest that we look outside of them.
No, I suppose Kildare Palace Henry's victory over Drum Bradford is a standout one, but I suppose with hurling coming back in their first year in their senior ranks in hurling, that's bound to take its toll. But yeah, it seems to be
Drum Bradford did make a statement in the second round against Crocora Manister, but we did wonder last week as to how Crocora Manister would adapt in their new surroundings, and we spoke in the context of Claughaun being battling around there at the top of for a couple of years before they were promotion, and the same with Gerald Griffins now. But like Crocora Manister came from nowhere to win the junior championship last year, and you were just wondering, we were wondering here last week, was that the ideal grounding going into the next level? And it is proved that it wasn't. Plus, there was another factor, of course, was that you were the Crocora were pitted against the Masters. Like, they may be down at intermediate level at the moment, but like the team of this third millennium so far have to be Drum Bradford, and there could be a revival there, and they could upset our best predictions. But certainly, I think they made a statement that people were saying, Drum Bradford, after being beaten by Kildare Palace Kenry, that a second relegation was looming. Not a bit of it, I'd say. Back in business, but to what extent, only time will tell, Jack.
Only time will tell, and I suppose the manner of that last Kildare Palace Kenry will see them probably more than likely face Mungret in the knockout stages. So it'll be tough to tell. But look, there's great games coming that, and I suppose we'll move quickly on into the Premier Junior Championship. I'll try and get the fixtures up here for us. I think that's the Junior A. Here we have Castlemahan versus Croom, Atay versus Mount Collins, Monaghan, Newcastle West, and All West Derby, and Father Casey's versus Kilteely Drumkeen. I suppose we had picked out, I think it was Croom you had picked out at the start of the championship as your team that you were to watch. I had picked out Atay. Again, has anything changed your mind?
I'd have a shout out for Kilteely Drumkeen as well,
Yeah, obviously Shawnee's club. It's handy to have an inter-county player at that level. They can really change a game for you. But like that All West tie of Monaghan, Newcastle West is one that really stands out for me. Obviously, Taymon Collins is the same, and there's some very good teams there. Teams that we've seen intermediate in recent years, and are having very close to intermediate. But I still would be plucking for Atay, if I was to call it from this early stage.
Yeah, but if you take an overall view of it, Jack, there are 8 teams left in it, and 6 of them are from West Limerick. Which is a football stronghold. I think the only 2 outsiders are Croom and Kilteely Drumkeen at this stage. So, like, there are some very interesting ties. Now, we didn't mention Monaghan at all. Now, they were runners up last year, and they deserve to come into any discourse that we have about likely winners. I wouldn't write them off at all. Now, you're probably saying that I'm second guessing as to who the 4 semi-finalists might be at this stage, but I certainly would be giving a shout out for them. And Kilteely Drumkeen have been around quite a while. Croom have been flirting with it, beaten in the semi-final, beaten in the final. There's going to be very interesting concluding stages to this championship. And like, if you go back 3 years, and I have said this before, Jack, if you go back 3 years when you had a whole pile of lopsided games in the Junior Football Championship. I think the manner in which the county board deserve the utmost credit for the manner in which they have restructured that junior championship. They have come up with a formula that has teams playing at their own level, and we see from the graphic that you put up just there a while ago of the quarterfinals, there are some mouth-watering contests to look forward to.
Yeah, and there they are again. Castleman versus Croom, Taymon Collins, Monaghan, Newcastle West, and Father Casey's versus Kilteely Drumkeen. They're all 3 weeks' time. We'll have to wait, but I suppose the majority of them teams are involved with the hurling championship. And lastly, for the football championships, the Junior A, these are the quarter-final pairings: Minogue versus Brewery, Ballybricken Bormore versus Mungret St. Paul's. Feeney Kilmeedy will either play Camogue Rovers or they're there to play next weekend or next week, I think. And then obviously the loser plays Feeney Kilmeedy, the winner plays St. Pat's. But I suppose in the Junior A, Ballybricken and Bormore have probably been the standout team thus far. And I think you had mentioned them from the outset, Matt.
Yeah, I think they probably are the outstanding team in my view. Now, you'd also look at it there, and Feeney Kilmeedy. Now, should Feeney Kilmeedy at their quarter-final materialize, that has the ingredients of being a right one. Because as far as I remember, they met in the 2020 West Junior B final a couple of months ago, and there was only just a point between them. So, and being finalists, hence they got promoted. So that will be very, very interesting. You know, we mentioned Mungret St. Paul's in the context of the intermediate championship. Like, it says an awful lot about Mungret St. Paul's that they have a team coming behind them that are, you know, competing at the concluding stages of the Junior A championship.
Mm.
No, that speaks volumes. But there's one standout fixture, Jack, of the four, the meeting of Bannog and Brewery near neighbours.
Yeah.
Now that will be a very, very interesting game. Trust me, it will be a very, very interesting game. Like, Brewery tend to put all their focus on hurling, and when that's finished, to play football. And mind you, they're damn good playing football. It's only about 10 years ago that they contested a Munster Junior Clubs final. They're quite good at adapting to football, and I suspect that a tie coming up against Bannog in the quarter-final will do a mighty lot to focus their minds, because you must remember there is absolutely incredible rivalry between Brewery and Drummond Atlachia. And you might ask yourself, what has that got to do with Brewery and Bannog? It has everything got to do with it, because Bannog and Drummond Atlachia are joined together in football. So there'll be a lot of nuances in that one. That will be one not to be missed.
Yeah, there's an awful lot of clashes there that can't be missed, really. But I suppose we'll leave the football talk there, and I suppose there will be a hurling special to come probably later this evening or else tomorrow, where we look at the start of all the hurling championships. But speaking of hurling, we got some bad news, I suppose, at the weekend with regards Peter Casey. What we feared, I suppose, came true, that he did tear his cruciate in the All-Ireland final. With that incident, I think he was running in on goals, and I think Aaron Gillan gave a pass off to him, and I don't know, did he slip or did the knee give way? But look, we won't have Peter for at least 9 months, and it's a real devastating thing for Peter, because he was flying in the All-Ireland final. He was on course to probably get 10 or 11 points, which I presume is unheard of in an All-Ireland final. But even for himself, for his club, for an Pearshig, like, it's just very disappointing news for a player that is at the peak of his power, started his first All-Ireland final, and as we said, was in contention for man of the match.
Jack, it's something that you hope is a nightmare, and that it isn't true, you know. Unfortunately, it is, and we've been in this medium now for a couple of weeks, and we've been speaking about Peter Casey And speaking about the sending off that shouldn't have been, and I would hold firm that it should never have taken place. But he certainly went into the All Ireland final, and he was making a statement. He as to what he could do, and you're right, Jack. He had 5 points got before he went off. He was possibly heading for record books of possibly going into double figures from play in an All Ireland final. He had the Cork defence pulled all over the place, and they were not able to regroup even following his departure. Look, it's a huge tragedy for Peter Casey. It's a huge loss and tragedy for the Piercing and for Limerick. But Jack, look, the big losers is the whole body of hurling. Hurling needs to have its superstars, and like when you're talking about superstar status, Peter Casey fits very, very comfortably into that category. I all we can do is wish Peter the very, very, very best of luck, and that we hope that we see him sooner than later. But knowing he has shown resilience in the past, Jack, and I wouldn't doubt for 1 minute the resilience of Peter Casey. But I just don't like thinking about it. It's such a blow, as I say, it's such a blow to everybody involved, and like the general public in Limerick were looking forward. They were looking forward to the club championship. Like, you really, really want to see your best players, and you want to see the like of Peter Casey at close hand and seeing what he can do. A man in the top of his form, but has the resilience, Jack, to bounce back, will bounce back from the injury, and will bounce back and recapture the type of form that has made him the star he is, and an all-star, if there's any justice there, this year. We wish Peter the very, very best of luck.
Yeah, we wish him the best of luck, and no doubt he'll give it his all, and he'll put in the work. And I suppose hopefully we will see Mike play for the Piercing later on this year, because it's an awful blow for two of Limerick's best, not to mind two of the Piercing's best, that they're both on the sideline. But look, Mike did his due diligence in rehab, and just unfortunately another setback. But hopefully we'll see one of the Casey brothers in action for the Piercing this year. We won't see Peter, but hopefully we will see Mike. Another, I suppose, I don't know if it's disappointing news for Limerick or is joining Ulster Rugby. And when I say good news, look, it's good on a personal level for Mikey, that the effort that he's put in with Limerick is being seen by a professional rugby setup. And when you look at the players, and obviously Joe O'Connor started this work, but they're animals, and I mean that in the nicest possible way. You see the size of these players, like Dan Morrissey, Kyle Hayes, Garrod Hegarty, Tom Morrissey, all these lads, and it's clearly down to obviously hard work from the boys themselves, but Mikey Kiely is putting in the procedures in place for them boys to excel, and we can only wish Mikey the best of luck in his endeavour with Ulster Rugby.
I couldn't agree more with you, Jack. I just couldn't agree more with him, and we wish him the very, very best of luck. And how lucky Ulster Rugby are to be getting a man of the calibre of Mikey Kiely. The contribution that he has made, Jack, to Limerick has been phenomenal. Like, his contribution behind the scenes, goes about his business so quietly, shuns the limelight, but by God, what a job he has done. And John Kiely wasn't slow to point the finger for the credit for the performance on All Ireland final day in Mikey Kiely's direction. But outside of that, Jack, the contribution that he has made to Limerick as a player himself and as a mentor, like, for a man of such young age, like, to have the CV that he has and to have the contribution behind him, contribution all for good, is simply phenomenal. Like, he's a huge loss to Limerick. And I want to join with you in wishing Mikey the very, very best of luck in his new endeavours with Ulster Rugby, and what is Limerick's loss is certainly Ulster Rugby's gain. And they when they came looking for somebody to fill that role for them, they certainly chose a top man, an absolute top man at the job. I'm desperate sorry to see him leaving the Limerick setup, but having said that, I'm sure he goes with every good wish that, and I'm speaking for all Limerick supporters. I would say, when I say we say thanks, Mikey, for what you've done, and wish you the very, very best of luck in your future with Ulster Rugby. And by the way, Mikey, if you're watching, hope we see you in the club championship in the coming weeks.
Yeah, hopefully we'll see him sooner rather than later. And look, who's to say that we won't see him with the Limerick setup in a few years? But you mentioned the word there is thanks to Mikey, and I suppose on a broader sense, there's been a lot of speculation about backroom staff and management team with Limerick, and you said it to me off air, and I just think it's important to say it, that whatever happens, we just need to enjoy this. Enjoy the staff that John Kiely has put together, and 3 All-Irelands in 4 years. It does not get much better. It could only get better with that half an hour against Kilkenny aside. It would have been 4 in a row, but we'll take 3 in 4 years anytime.
Jack, I'm one of those people that has been 45 years watching other counties celebrating and glowing in All-Ireland success. And now it has come to our door, thankfully, to a special group of players, special management, and 3 All-Irelands in 4 years. It wasn't just 3 All-Irelands in 4 years. We saw, arguably, the greatest performance by a team, possibly the greatest team ever, in an All-Ireland final. And we saw it, exactly 10 days ago. And now we have descended, instead of basking in it, we have descended to speculating as to what might and what might not happen with the backroom team. Will we, for God's sake, park that, enjoy the moment, enjoy what our players and our management have achieved, and we have the utmost confidence that in the fullness of time, the county board will have the backroom team in place, and the backroom team will come together in the fullness of time. And they have got plenty of time between now and the end of the year to do it. But for God's sake, stop this nonsensical speculation, out of place speculation. Let's enjoy the moment. Let's enjoy what we have achieved. Now, Mikey is going, we know that. But let's not speculate about who else might be going, or this, that, or the other thing. Let's enjoy the moment. To me, when I see this thing, to me it's the height of nonsense, and because a lot of those people weren't waiting as long as fellas of my age for these kind of moments. And by God, I for one am prepared to milk it anyway, and enjoy it and bask it, and dare anyone stop that, Jack?
Yeah, we will enjoy it. We will cherish it. And look, we'll have these players back in action as soon as tonight. It's the meeting of South Liberties and Blackrock. I'm very sure it's tonight's game. And the Senior Hurling Champions back, and we have Barry Nash will be playing that game. Brian Ryan is also a part of the All-Ireland winning squad. But I suppose we'll leave it at that, Matt. We have the preview of the hurling to come, and before we go, just the Winnacua competition. I think it's coming up soon. I think it might be even the 5th of September. But it's just while we should be enjoying these Limerick players, they're obviously enjoying their time, and you'll see it in that short video. But many thanks to you, Matt, and we'll be in touch soon to talk about the hurling championship.
You're welcome, Jack.
No, he was still automatics, like. Here we have this beautiful car. You have a chance of winning at www.winakuga.ie for €20, and your support is much appreciated. Thank you. Yeah. Like an old farmer. No, Dave, you just lie across the planet. You know, yeah, will you? Stop on or off? Pitch up the shorts a bit, you know. You're right, man. Can't move. Nice car for you to win now. Be lucky. Super Grady. I take it. Accuracy is a bit. It's off, is it? Yeah.
Your hips going that way and your face this way.
Oh, you see them. Oh, you see them. Oh my good God.
Why did you just say that?
You do walk down there. That'd be fun.